All right, guys, so we are focusing on past and present right now, but we're going to put future to the side. So let's go ahead and do this sort together. So it says right here at the top, past. And on the top over here on this other side, it is present. So let's view the instructions. So the instructions say, 1, sort each picture by the past and the present. And then we're done. We press the green check mark. You ready? All right, so this right here, oh, I'm in the drawing tool. We need to do the drag. There we go. So right here is a telephone. Do we use this kind of telephone today? Do we use that telephone today?
Sometimes. Well, you have one over there, like kind of close to it.
Kind of close to it, but do I use this exact one?
No.
No, most of the time we use what for phones? Like cell phones, right? Mobile phones. So this one would be considered in the past. What about this thing? What is this? So we are using a lot of these right now with our virtual learning, right?
Yeah, I'm using one right now.
Yeah, and Mrs. Fullington's using one right now. So I think we need to keep this in the present. What about this right here? This is a horse and carriage. So this is in the past because this is a type of transportation that we would use if we didn't have a car back then. Because back then cars were not invented until the 30s or the teens.
Horses are not in the past. They are not.
Yes, horses are in the future. In the future too, we use them in the future. But the horses and carriage, the carriage part is what considers it in the past because they use that as a car.
They didn't have this.
So this right here is a what? It's a car or a van. So
It's a Rolls Royce.
The present. Do what? Roxton, did you have a question, Sudie?
I know what kind of car that is.
What is it?
A Rolls Royce.
Yes, it is. You're exactly right. What is this one right here, Roxton? I want Roxton.
That's a typer.
It's a typewriter. So typewriter was used back then as almost like a laptop, but that was back then. So we would use it in the past. Yes, ma'am.
When we went to a police station, there was like a typer back.
Oh, yes.
My uncle
Mackenzie?
has one of those, but it's really rusty.
Yes, it's considered old. All right, so what is this nifty thing? A phone. So that is in the present. It could be a tablet, but we're going to look at it as a phone. So we really did a really good job on this sort. So we're going to go ahead and pause for just a second, and we're going to do the pledge. And stand. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
The pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
It's too bad.
Thank you. You may be seated. For lunch today, we have chicken sandwich with trimmings, ranch beans, carrot sticks, oranges, ketchup, mayo, mustard, and ranch dressing, as well as a lot of variety. Mr. Hopkins can't talk today of milk. Students, remember that tomorrow is a $1 jeans day. If you would like to wear jeans tomorrow, please feel free.
Miss Fullington, can you sit out?
Please, those are all the announcements I have for you this morning.
All right, so let's go ahead and continue our learning. All right, so now we're going to learn a little bit more about this thing right here. What is this?
It's a telephone.
A telephone. So we are going to go back 100 years and we're going to read a book of how telephones evolved from what is now a touch screen phone.
Is it a video?
It's a book. And I'll be reading it to you today.
Oh.
Yes.
You know that telephone, you actually put in the numbers and spin it around.
You have to spin it around. That's exactly right. You couldn't tap anything or push any buttons. You had to spin your phone number. So if you had to go all the way around in a circle and then let it roll back and then do the number again.
Guess what?
All right, guys, hold on just a second. We're going to hold our questions right now. We're going to do our story. All right. So it says phones 100 years ago. So you're going to see some interesting pictures.
Whoa.
So this is an old picture of a little girl on a telephone.
Is that what girls look like in old days?
Yes.
Wow.
All right, phones 100 years ago. Here's a table of contents. Usually you'll see a table of contents in a chapter book, and it will tell you what the title of that page is and then the page number where you can find it. It says, hello, the first telephones. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone more than 100 years ago in 1876. By the early 1900s, telephones were part of daily life. So this is what a telephone looked like before the one that we saw on our sort. This is what it looked like.
Oh, interesting.
And this is Alexander Graham Bell, and he is the inventor of the telephone. And people are watching him because this is probably the first moment that he has used the telephone to call somebody. So that's kind of cool how they documented that. They took a picture of him doing that.
Did he die before?
He already died, yes. He already passed away. Yeah. Different kinds of phones. The most common phones were called candlestick phones. So if you see here, it looks like a candle, like a long stick candle. They were tall and thin like candlesticks. Uh-oh. It says people talked into the round mouthpiece at the top. So you see the round mouthpiece at the top? They put the earpiece to their ear to listen. So the little girl's or the little boy or little girl's holding it right here, and you can't really see it. But it usually hangs. So let's see if we can see it on the back one. Nope, this one's not one of them. That's an actual earpiece phone. All right, so let's see about another one. It says wooden wall telephones were shaped like boxes. They had nicknames like coffin and fiddleback. The mouthpiece and the earpiece were separate. The caller turned a crank to make a call. So you see the little girl twisting the little call to kind of, because back then they had people, they're called operators, where they had thousands of cords and they would switch to different switch on the switchboards. So they would transfer the call that way. So it says here the mouthpiece and earpiece were separate. So the caller turned a crank to make a call. The cord was short. Anyone who talked on these phones had to stand near the phone. That would be kind of hard, wouldn't it, to stand for hours and hours instead of just taking it wherever you go? It's a little bit different. Yes, ma'am.
And we still have those, but it's a big box, but it's clear.
Yes.
You just walk in.
Yes, Christopher? It looks like glasses on a mountain on a top. Oh. Harlow, give me just a second, so let's finish our story, okay? It says desk phones were called cradle telephones. The receiver rested in the cradle. The receiver had a handle with both an earpiece and a mouthpiece. So this one, it cradled the phone, so basically it holds the phone at the phone stand, and then you can crank it right here. It's almost like a jack-in-a-box. You remember those things where they pop up on you when you have to crank it? So it looks just like that. So those are super different from what we have, right?
Can you take those anywhere?
No, you couldn't travel with them. You had to sit. So you see the lady in the picture, she's sitting with her telephone. So the cord is still short.
And you can take the phone with you to travel.
Yes, well, today you can. Making a call. 100 years ago, most phones didn't have dials or buttons. The caller picked up the receiver and spoke to an operator. So that's what Mrs. Fullington was talking about. So here's an operator right here. So it says most operators were women. Telephone companies thought women had nicer voices than men. So women would have those jobs and they'll say, how would you like to transfer your call? And so they would pull their cord from the switchboard and say, oh, I'd like to talk to Dr. Anderson. And they would find Dr. Anderson's little plug and they would plug that telephone into that.
Let's see where they what phone is that?
So this one's a box phone, remember? He's standing beside it. So he has the earpiece here and he talks into the little phone here. Mm-hmm.
I can see where she could.
Yeah. So Christopher said, I can see where she can talk into this little receiver here.
Is it hanging?
Yes. So here are the switchboards that Mrs. Fullington was talking about. Look at the 1,000 switches that the women had to pull the cords and transfer the calls. So it says every call lit up a button on a big electric switchboard. The operator plugged in the cords and flipped switches to connect the call. Most calls were not private.
Is that how they wrote numbers in the old days?
Uh-huh. So it says many families shared one phone line called a party line. So that's a big job for those ladies because they have to actually pay attention where they're putting the person that wants to make the call to another person. They have to pay attention to which switch they're going to switch them to.
Like it's the doctor?
Mm-hmm. It says payphones. Payphones had coin slots for nickels, dimes, and quarters. After someone made a call, the operator told the caller how much to pay. So they'll say, okay, Mrs. Susan, you need to pay 50 cents. So that's 2 quarters. So you need to put in 2 quarters and then I can transfer your call.
Is 75 cents 3 quarters?
Yes. So it says sometimes there was only one phone in the whole town. The phone was usually near the general store, so that's the grocery store. Everyone in town used it. Today, it is hard to imagine life without a telephone. So can you believe that some towns only had one phone in that entire town? Can you imagine if Ferris only had one phone and you had to go to the Brookshire Brothers to use it? So if you wanted to call your mom to see, hey, Mom, do you want me to take out the trash? You had to walk to the grocery store to ask her that question. Oh my goodness, that's a long walk, isn't it? Mm-hmm. All right, so this is photo glossary. So these are all the vocabulary words that we have learned so far. So it says a candlestick telephone, a telephone in the shape of a tall, thin candle holder. An earpiece, so you see the lady having the earpiece, the part of the telephone that the caller listens from. Event. To create something new that has not been thought of before. Mouthpiece, the part of the telephone the caller talks into. Operator, a person who works at a phone company and helps connect phone calls. And lastly, it's the switchboard, the control center or panel for connecting the lines of a telephone system. All right, so here are the websites that you can look at. The history of telephones for kids. These are websites that you can look at for telephones if you want to look at 100 years ago what telephones look like. The index is to help you find certain subjects. So if I say, oh, I want to learn about the operator. So I'm going to look where the operator is. I can find something about the operator on page 12, page 13, page 15, page 16, and page 17. So you can find the word operator in those pages in this story. So that's what an index is for. All right, guys. So I think that's it for social studies. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to show you what you're going to do on your seesaw. So let me go ahead and switch that. So I'll be back in just a second.
Are we going to use seesaw for the whole entire year?
On some things. Not a lot of things. Where's my seesaw?
Is that it? So,
all right, so we are in Mrs. Fullington's seesaw account. So let me see. So you're going to go into activities. And we are looking at schools then and now. So when you click that, I'm going to act like a student here. So you have a century ago, this is what a school looked like. Now this is what a classroom looks like. So you're going to answer these two questions. Question number 1 says, what are some of the major differences do you see in a classroom from 100 years ago and the classroom we have now? So you're going to use the text box, and I'm going to drag this text box right here, and you're going to use the text box to tell me 2 things that you see different. Okay? So you're going to tell me 2 things that you see different from this classroom to this classroom, okay?
So how do we do the 1 and 2?
I'll show you how to do that. You can also do dots. So you can do 1 period and 2 period. Okay? So you can do that too. That one's better. That one's easier. All right. So yes. So number 2 says, which would you rather attend and why? So which one would you like to go to and tell me why? So you're going to click another text box, and you're going to drag this text box over here, and you're going to tell me why you would like to go to one of these classrooms. So you're going to choose one of them. Why? And then you're going to tell me why you want to go to that classroom.
Right, I want to go to the one where is in.
So say, I would like to go to the classroom in the past because, and then you're going to tell me why. Okay? That's all you're going to do for today, guys, for social studies. And then you'll make sure you press that green check mark because that tells me that you finished your assignment, okay? All right, guys, I will see you at 9:20 for reading, okay? You may log out of this Google Meet.